Hello, Michael.
Hi, Emily.
We are introducing our next podcast episode, one of my favourites so far, with Laura and Juanita of Eve Workwear and Eve Renovations. But before we get into our introduction, we just want to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we record our podcast, the Turrbal and Jagera people, and pay our respects to the elders, both past, present and future. This was one of my favourite podcast episodes with a really important message behind it so far. Laura and Juanita started Eve Renovations in 2010, which is an all-female construction company, which you don't hear about many of those around, do. And later in 2012, they started Eve Workwear, which is a workwear company for women's workwear, a real barrier to entry, as we learnt about in this conversation with them, something that might seem like a small problem, but when that all piles up, is a really key issue that needs to be addressed.
I found this, I agree with you, this was one of my favourite ones that we've done so far. And I was just left pondering what a couple of trailblazers, what a couple of determined women who had just made it happen and faced adversity, lots of adversity through the years, and still facing some adversity. And I just found them quite inspiring. So I hope everybody enjoys this episode.
Yep, they're real champions for change. They're incredible women. So let's jump in. Good morning, Juanita and Laura. Thank you for joining us on the Deconstruction pod.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, it's great. Thank you.
Well, we're going to talk a bit today about Eve Renovations and Eve Workwear. Eve Renos, you both started in 2010 and then Workwear came later in 2012. Do you want to give yourselves, we always start the podcast by giving our speaker the opportunity to introduce themselves and their role day to day, and a bit of the career journey of how you got to be at Eve. So sure. Who wants to kick it off?
Oh, sure, I can. Hi, I'm Laura. I grew up in Ireland, in a very small town. So I did a first apprenticeship over there. I wasn't ready for uni. I didn't think I would behave myself enough. So I thought maybe a trade would be good. But as you can imagine, in a small town, being a girl, it was not offered, and everywhere I investigated, they said no. So this, of course, encouraged my path. And eventually I did find someone that was willing to put me on as a wall and floor tiler. So I still remember the first day walking through the gates of that. It was a hospital construction site in the west of Ireland, so it was huge. And I was the only girl on site. So that was pretty daunting, but I survived. I finished my tiling over there, and then I came to Australia and worked on a few of the high rises over here for a couple of years, and did a little bit out on my own business tiling. And then after that, I wanted to move along in the industry a little bit more, and to do that, I decided that a second apprenticeship was on the cards for me. Most people thought I was crazy, but I went back and did my carpentry, which allowed me to then go on to get my builder's license. And that's sort of where Juanita comes into the story, and we sort of kicked off with Eve Renovations.
Yeah, in 2010. My story's a bit different. I actually, out of high school, went to university, and I actually studied human movement science. So totally different to where I ended up. And part of the reason I think that was because a trade wasn't offered to girls at school. So we were expected to go to university, and that's what I did. And I worked in marketing and business management in Brisbane City. and was renovating my own houses, and Laura and I were mates, and over a beer or a champagne
Or two.
we came, we decided, that I guess we thought we could probably do it better and we could do it differently, and that's what the construction industry needed. And out of that came the workwear, which again is I guess the best description would be that it's a game changer as well as our business. Yeah.
With Juanita's marketing and business background and my construction background, it was a perfect union at the time. And we really wanted to give girls a platform, so that they could see it. Like there was women getting into the industry, but we wanted them to feel like they could be more. They could have their own business. Start your own business, do your own thing, employ more women, and that's how this is going to get things moving. So that's what we really initially wanted to start by doing that and see how things went. So it was pretty good.
At the time, did you know of any all-female-led construction businesses?
No.
No, I don't think so.
No, we did look for, obviously when starting your own business, you want to know if it's, it's going to succeed, if it's feasible. So we did up a business plan, and we got a business coach, and their advice was to get a mentor or someone who you could ask advice from. Basically, there was no one within the industry that we could turn to. I mean, there was plenty of male champions out there, but our business would be run differently because we are women, and that would just be a natural thing. But there was no one that we could, look to or ask questions. So we had to, I guess become leaders in our own right, and we were happy to do that. Yeah.
Most of the time.
I can imagine there'd be a lot of challenges putting yourself out there as an all-female run construction company. Was there any kind of pushback or hard time?
It's always hard time.
Always, yeah, but I don't think that it's just the construction industry that you're going to find that in.
Yeah,
there's
very true.
There's always going to be challenges, and if you're doing something different, there's always going to be a challenge.
You have little knockbacks all the way, and I think as women...
Social media wasn't as big as it is now when we first started, so it was more of a friendly environment where, you didn't have both sides. It was just very positive and small. So we had that a little bit, but all of our work was word of mouth, and we didn't have any issues in that regard. So we built the company the way we wanted to, and we had people work with us that wanted to work with us, and the same with the clients. So we sort of protected ourselves in that manner. So you had a few guys that, or a few problems that you run into, but...
I mean, back then we even had issues going to the hardware supply places. We even had trouble, getting the stuff put on the truck for us, or...
Because of the fact that you were women.
Yeah.
Getting licensing was difficult, surprisingly.
How? Why?
You would have had overseas qualifications for starters, wouldn't you?
I did, but I had all of my qualifications here in Australia as well. So I got everything. So I had both sets, and I did my apprenticeship here in carpentry.
Wow,
and
okay.
then had my... I was questioned. Some of the questions to my references were not appropriate from the licensing bodies.
They're particularly asking about...
How does she conduct herself as a woman on site, which I don't know what has to do with getting a license.
You're true. You're right. You're kidding me.
True.
No, true.
It was a very difficult time probably for us at that stage.
So not only the normal hurdles that we were trying to overcome, then when we thought we ticked all the boxes and we're doing everything right, an organisation that you think that are...
supporting you.
Pro-women...
With the benefit of hindsight, is that one of the unforeseen things that I presume that when you sat down and had those few beers and, the subsequent days when you probably would have expected or had been able to map out the challenges. But then with the benefit of hindsight, what what has come out of left field that you just didn't see?
I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Truly. But like for me, I've been in the industry for 10 years at that stage. So I knew exactly what was coming. Juanita probably didn't.
No, because I came from marketing and business management, and I also worked in not-for-profits. Women were majority in that organisation. So, you know, the same challenges, and I just could not believe it, I was doing my apprenticeship when we first started and being spoken to like a tradie, I was taken aback. I was really coming from a professional in the city. People looked at you differently and spoke to you differently, and that's got that whole persona of tradies are, you know, lower income, whereas they're not. They're the ones earning the money. They're the ones, you know, if I had have known straight out of school, you could have got your trade and, you know, who knows now.
Saved a few years.
Yeah, saved
Exactly.
a few years. And that's, if we didn't do what we did, we would not have come across that problem with the licensing organisation, and it would never have got addressed. So that's a profound change that we, I believe, helped to make, because there was no other female builders wanting their low-rise builders, their medium-rise builders, and, you know, surging ahead.
And then we get funny things like you call up for, you know, insurance, building insurance, and they're like, is that for your husband? Which is common. Yeah. So anyone we call up, they're like, oh, is this your husband's business? You know,
ongoing.
What's your husband's name?
All the time.
All constant.
Yeah.
Every time you think we've made changes, I hear stories like this, and it just sits me back on my backside. And I think, well, have we really changed? I think we have, but it is 2 steps forward and 1 step back all the time.
It is. Like I found that like the industry in Australia is quite welcoming. Like I really did find it a very nice place to come and work when I moved over here, but it hasn't progressed from that, and we should be 20 years ahead now, and we're not. So.
Yeah.
Well, with that, what is the true benefit of more females on your site? Like we kind of spoke about increased safety,
Yes.
a better environment, and like a safer wellness environment and culture on site. Do you see that?
We do. We had majority women, and then we had probably 50-50 men and women. And the 50-50 definitely worked better. I don't think it should be either more men or more women. It should be, you know, as close to 50-50 that you can get. I think it's it breaks down the masculine ego
barrier.
This persona that they're having to put on the guys, and you sort of feel sorry for them in a way that they have to do this, but to be accepted in the industry. And when they come on our site, you just see they would just relax, they're open, they talk about if they had a problem on the site, and they'd ask our opinion, and it would be a discussion, very helpful to other workers there as well. Like it would be a team, not an individual.
And not even through just our company, but through the 20 years I've spent in the industry. I'm telling you, people say that guys don't talk. Well, they do, because I was the person they came and talked to. You know, you put someone there that they feel like they can have a conversation with, they will talk.
They will.
And they just felt safe for themselves, like they were in a good, so I just think 50-50 is just going to make everyone, it's just a better place to work.
It just works better in any industry.
Environment. The ideas
better.
are better, and the problem solving's better. And then at the end of the day, for major companies that are looking at 50-50 workers, if you want to look at the bottom line, if your productivity is increased and everyone's happier, your bottom line's increased. So it's
crazy. There's been enough research about diversity in boards. The big boards. I mean, the boards that have really had a long period of 50-50 diversity are by far the best performing organisations. So it's not rocket science. It's like gee whiz. When men and women come together with a common cause and a good culture.
Yeah.
the outcomes have just always been better.
And religion, race,
sexual
orientation, breaking down all those stereotypes that have been...
The full range of diversity, if it's represented at the top, it's just a better place.
Yes.
So, but the construction industry has been very... the men have hung on pretty tight for...
They have.
And I can say that as a man, and I've seen it almost 30 years now in this industry. The men hang on pretty tight to the position they've been able to assume, certain types of men.
Yeah.
There's definitely a change.
Why is that?
I think a lot of it's got to do with connections, quite frankly. The men are connected with all the special, so they're all connected. You need some finance. The men go to the men
that they know.
Bankers. It's just such a connected, interwoven industry that has been built up and established. And for that to be broken, you've got to sort of break it at every sort of level.
And I found that when I worked in Brisbane in corporate, that you had to go out to the lunches and you had to socialise, and you're supposed to go and play golf and to try and, get into that. And I found that difficult even there to do that.
I can't, the days of, thank heavens it's changed. The days were that you just literally had to do the rugby lunches and the rugby and like that.
Yes.
And that's fine, put up a hand. I did it. But since coming to Helix and certainly being part of the shaping of this, no way in the world is that part of the ethos that I want to see here, because it is literally, you're diving into that old established culture that I'm arguing is bad for us. You got to start somewhere. So, that means I don't do those social things. If people want to collaborate, they'll collaborate respectfully with all of us.
That's right.
Well, we'd push back because we'd get invited to golf days, and we'd push back and say, why don't you do something that's more inclusive for us, and then we will attend.
Yeah, and then there would be only us two there.
Oh, come, I can't play golf.
Yeah.
And I feel like you shouldn't have to feel as a woman that you need to go out and take golf lessons so that you can participate in the golf days. The days just need to change.
Yes.
Why don't we have a variety of days?
Yeah,
you can still have golf days,
absolutely.
but why don't you have something else too? Because I don't have time and I don't want to spend my money going and taking a golf lesson, and I know I'll be bad.
Yes.
It's not going to help me in the future.
It's going to be good for anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope I hope that's changing. Yeah.
Attitudes are changing, but you're right. There are so many people hanging on to it for their dear life.
And it's very different from us on the front line as tradies to even talking to other women who are project managers or higher level. They really need to know what's going on at that level. Like, do you have a toilet to use? Things,
Yeah, because that's what we've been finding lately as well, is that there is a lot of women, like you're saying, it's coming in more in the, they're saying there's 15%, but it's a lot more in the, not on the front line, but...
administration,
Professional industry.
The professional industry. And then you talk to the professional industry that are up there and advocating for women, and you're saying to them, do you know how many are on the front line? And they're like, 15%? We're like, no, 2%. Yeah. So now we've got the women in there. We still need to tell them what's going on the front line as well. So, it's about that constant conversation, I think.
I think culturally certain things happen that just blow sort of the old models up. So slightly off target, but if you think of, it was only 5 or 10 years ago when they had a day, Women in League Day. And it was essentially the tuck shop. That was how women were seen
with
rugby league only 10 years ago. It's somehow, you've got this not somehow, but thankfully you've now got this wonderful growing participation, one of the fastest across all the games, rugby league, rugby union, Aussie rules. So now the whole narrative is that hardly gets mentioned now. It's mentioned in the context of participating, not supporting. But it was only 5 or 10 years ago.
It was
seen to be which was important. You know, my mum did tuck shop duty when I was running around, but it was seen to be the only way women were involved. So, and that just came out of nowhere. The women decided to speak and say, no, we want to play.
That's right.
Who made that change?
I think the women just knocked the doors down.
Yeah.
And you will build change rooms for us. And the next time you go to the council and get grants for upgrades, you're not going to make the men's change room more flashy. You're actually going to build a women's change room.
Yeah.
It's all that type of stuff. And it's been fussed upon. It's just this, like I said, this wave of, no, we're not going to be treated this way anymore. So
I guess that's where our clothing.
I was just about to say those barriers and clothing is one.
Yes, I mean, the clothing was a huge thing for us. We never set out to do it. It just evolved, and we could see how it affected not only our lives when we were wearing proper gear to work, but it affected all women. We were getting emails and messages of saying, you have changed my life. I now walk into the classroom as a woodworking teacher looking like I belong,
Like, isn't that profound? You change someone's life because they now have suitable workwear to wear to work.
And trying to change the idea that, so when we set out, I had the idea that the clothing, as tradies, sure, we're tradies, but I don't want to look like, I've come from a work site and then I can't go to the shops on the way home, or I can't go to the pub and have a beer because what I'm wearing is so daggy.
I look like I stole my dad's workwear.
Pants, yeah. And, so that was the whole philosophy. I wanted to feel good. If I feel good about, like when I used to work in the city, what I put on a suit, I put on a shirt that day, I feel great. Why wouldn't it be the same for women working on site? So I guess that was the philosophy. And from that, it's just evolved into what it is today. Women are different to men, and this has been one of the big challenges is we are different shapes. We are different sizes. We have different body types. We cannot just wear one size fits all. So one size fits all is maybe leggings or tights or pants that have no
standard
shape.
fit.
Yes, they're a standard fit. There's no style, and then putting pockets back into. So a lot of the uniform places or a lot of the businesses that give their women uniforms, they will give them women's stuff that hasn't got the pockets in it that the men's stuff has. So the men are out there doing their carpentry and they're given
with their pencils and
everything, and then the women are given maybe corporate pants because there's none available by the supplier that has been supplying to that business. So that is one of our big barriers is, a lot of companies don't want to have a men's supplier and a women's supplier. Yeah. So they just give the women whatever they get.
Because men are the monopoly.
So how can you feel like you are part of a team when you're wearing gear that doesn't even, serve the same purpose as the men's stuff?
So it's not only how you feel in your workwear, it's also the functionality of what you're wearing.
So the different shapes of women, we have pants that have a wider waist and a smaller crutch, or we have a high rise, so the women like to wear higher rise. We have a low rise. We have, for petite, so many women that are a size 4 or less working in jobs. It's not just construction, but it's across cleaning and construction or those sorts of jobs. They're coming into me saying, I can't fit into any clothing.
And why should you have to go and get your clothing altered?
Yes.
That's right.
Exactly.
And like some of the companies, we were just recently at a manufacturing conference, and they were saying that the workwear that they're being provided with, they won't accept. And they have to go out and buy their own workwear because it doesn't fit. So now again, men are being financially ahead because women have to buy their own clothing to go to work and men are getting free uniforms. Like it just is on every level. And it might seem small, but it's not. It's a big thing. If you don't.
It is a big thing when you're trying to get women to stay in the industry and stay doing those jobs. I guess these little things chip away, like with us, the going to the hardware store and, not being taken seriously, trying to get our license, whatever it was, these things do chip away. And it's the same if you're working on a site and the clothing, you just wear whatever you're given, even if it doesn't fit. And it's a safety thing as well. So and then there's no toilet. And then, the tools aren't available for you because they're being taken by someone else in the workshop who has been there longer or has a more dominant personality. So, look, I think construction coming from outside to inside, it's got huge problems. Huge problems.
As the designer, have your ideas changed over the years in terms of your design ethos? If that's the right. Did you pretty well have it right in the first instance, and you've only done little tweaks, or have you?
Pretty much in the first instance, which this is a positive, I think, that women. We didn't demand much more than what was available, but now we demand a lot more. So we demand the 10 pockets, we demand the stretch fabric, that they fit, there's different lengths available in the legs, colours. So we are now, there are more choices, but these are mostly customers direct. They're not businesses getting behind their staff or showing their appreciation for the women they do have. Like that would change we're happy to go into businesses and show our gear to the women that are there. We just need an invite and we will come in and let the girls try on whatever they want. I mean, how good would that be for the women at that business? How great would they feel?
And like you said, it's not a problem for, I've seen it lots of times, blokes knocking off and picking up their kids at school. Yeah. They obviously look like they've come from a building site, but they're kitted out okay.
Yes,
right. It's like if they want to be, they're kitted out okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could imagine the barrier that would be unless if a woman has got to be doesn't feel good in whatever they've been given. It's just one more unnecessary.
That's right.
It's unnecessary, and it's an easy change that is part of this whole culture shift. And it's just one little thing.
It is like, even the local councils, they won't even tolerate you have to supply men's and women's for them to even put you on as one of their procurement.
Businesses who care and they want to get outside and they are making those changes and they can see the future, they will just come direct to us. But it's not being, it's not policy.
Do you sell only direct at the moment, or do you have any stockists that take your clothing?
Well, that's another story.
So I guess being bright-eyed and bushy-tailed back in the day, I thought, this would be no problem. We've got a great product. Women love it. It's making change. So we'll just get it into workwear retail stores.
Yeah.
No.
They won't, no take up.
So
they will not give floor space
to women. To more floor space. So at the moment you might go in and there's maybe 2 racks and it's maybe one brand or another, 2 brands.
Major brands.
Maybe 1 colour, maybe 2 colours. Most women who go into those stores, they're not going to fit, just that one brand with the different colour. And plus they want to try it on, and there's usually not more than what never used to be change rooms in workwear stores until recently. But we got told that they won't give any more floor space, and when I asked why, they said because women don't come into our stores, it's not a major thing for us. And I said, if you gave them more choice, women will come in. I'd say a lot of them are coming in with their partners probably anyway, shopping,
I go in with my stepdad.
There you
I'm
go.
at work with.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
Gotta get some pants, some shirts. They're huge. The floor space is humongous.
Yeah.
So if they change I know that they would probably have to invest a little bit initially and get the word out there that they are now stocking these great ranges for women, and also different things like gloves, like smaller gloves and different hard hats because our heads are smaller, and All these things, if they did that, I believe the women would support.
So you're
Such
saying
a missed opportunity.
not one retailer, not one major retailer or every major retailer has knocked you back so far?
We are in some small local businesses, but on any large scale, no.
And it kind of like all of the themes that have been spoken about at the moment about construction having an image problem and not being able to bring in women and get enough girls on the tools, and it all just kind of seems to just dwindle down to all those little problems that you're talking about. Like if girls at school, you know, if it was just like more heavily advertised for women's workwear, and like there weren't as many problems in the industry. Like, what if you were just walking along and see that, you know, that it's not so masculine?
That's right.
It was only 10 years ago we complained to a local tool retailer because they had signs up with the Makita bikini girl holding a circular saw. This is only 10,
it's 5 years
And we
ago.
went into their tool store and we said, what the hell is your advertising?
Yeah.
You know, we come in here to buy power tools and this is what, you know, you've got.
So degrading.
And I just don't even know who approves that?
We said it was
who
the
thinks
boss,
that's a good idea?
the big boss.
Ever in this day and age. Like, and that's the stuff that you're
So,
constantly.
yeah, those little chips at women, and it's the same for the women on site. Yeah. It does get you down, yeah.
And so, what was the process like going from running the construction company to having, like, going into the fashion industry?
Yeah.
Is there like much change or like learning development that you had to go through to go through that process?
Well, I don't know why we chose two of the hardest industries. It has been, yeah, in every sense. I mean, but that's why we love to be challenged in life, and we feel as though we're making change, so that keeps us going. But pretty much we had to learn all the processes, like manufacturing. Fashion is a funny industry too, because you go out there to try and find out information and no one will give you information. No one shares any information about where to manufacture, where to get patterns made, where to get fabric, how do you pull all this together? What about, you know, importing? And no one will give up information. So you've got to just, you know, blaze that trail yourself, and if it works out, it works out. It's a tough industry, retail, and you know what's going on at the moment. It's absolutely tough out there everywhere, and you hear the businesses that are collapsing, like construction, but in retail, like every day. It's heartbreaking. And we're just, you know, really pushing forward and hoping that we can get through this, you know, time and come out the other side.
I think it's important because, you know, we've lived that life of construction and what kind of a difference it makes having that available for you, and how it can make a difference in your life having workwear and feeling comfortable. So
it's important. And as women, I think we shouldn't, I mean, the women are the ones starting all the businesses, the small businesses, and you can't deny it's hard work. It's so hard, like 70, 80 hours a week, you know, you're on call all the time in both, like construction, the same, like clients in construction, they would, you know, there's no 8 to 5 or 8 to 4. Or,
no.
It's the same, sort of the same thing with an e-commerce business. You're on the go all the time. But we wouldn't have it any other way. We love it. We feel like we've made change.
We've got this far.
We'll keep making change if we can, and who knows what we're up for.
Have you pushed your fashion wear into the mining and resources area, or is it?
So it's a tricky one as well. A lot of the mining companies are that big that they're pretty much their own.
Yeah, they do their own stuff.
Yeah.
So when
they're
importing, and this is another problem, the procurement process is they go on price. So anyone tendering, you have to go in at the lowest price. So that's going to cancel out pretty much all Australian brands that are either designing here or manufacturing here straight away, because procurement is on price. So it's, if you're getting a work shirt from South Africa for $3,
I think, yeah, okay.
how do we...
I think there's going to be some change that's going to come through the procurement area, particularly through the ethical supply
Yes.
issues associated with
Yep.
procurement broadly.
Yeah.
So
And the where the fabric comes from,
Absolutely.
where the fabric goes.
Absolutely.
Like if you're making clothes that are using artificial, materials, then they're not going to compost. They're not going to break down. Like we do mending kits so people can repair their workwear and keep them. We hope that we see them in op shops. That's how good the quality is in our fabric and the stitching. You can use thread that will break when you pull it, right? And that's what most clothing's made from. Or you can get pull thread like that, and it's a few cents. And we were like, well, I can't see why you would use inferior, and it's part of it is that it's made from, not natural fibres, and it doesn't break down.
I was only seeing the other day, and I'll find some more information about it because I only had 1 year on open. But I'm sure it was Tanya Plettersay, who's the federal environmental minister, was really telling off the other day. Well, she was recognising 3 major fashion brands who have gone, if I can call it circular economy, or reusable.
Yes.
And she was indicating that, well, if there's not going to be more that are going to join the party voluntarily, I'll legislate.
Yeah, great.
So I'll pass on some information there. That, like I said, I think there's a few things converging. I think there's the appetite for the Gen Zs who are really exploring where it comes from and who's paying for it and what's involved in it.
Sustainability in general. Women's clothing is huge now. So if it just branches over into sustainability, into construction clothing, that's another thing.
How do we, if you're on minimum wage, okay, and you're working in a factory and you want to wear clothing that it is not going to cost the same as something that's imported in bulk in 50,000 of them, and that's $20.
The business has to subsidise it.
That's right. So the business has to make the change.
And if the business, and this is where I think it comes together with the procurement stuff, if that business wants to do government work, well then part of the examination of that business's entitlement is to what they are doing in these very important sort of social issues. People have a crack at it and call it woke, which it's like woke has been weaponised by a bunch of people who've got no idea where it came from in the first instance. But it's that social environment that particularly young people, but everybody is now saying, this is important stuff.
Yeah, and it is. Yeah. And if the businesses or the government and whoever's if they don't make change for businesses in this country, the businesses will keep collapsing.
That's right.
Cannot go on if they can just get in clothing from somewhere else for cheaper.
There's a critical part that goes into solar panels.
Yes.
That only comes from that, currently is only manufactured in that horrible part of China that which is literally slave created. I can't remember the name of it. Yeah. And at some point in time, and the government has indicated that the businesses that are importing these panels, which are necessary for the renewal revolution that's happening, are going to have to wean themselves off that particular component because it's a component, it's an input that's come from slave labour. Yeah. So
isn't that in itself like that they can still actually do that in this, that there has to be something implemented from the government for them to stop taking?
The crazy thing about it is it's an opportunity for a local business to say, okay, and this is where
start making
I'll start.
But if they don't buy it from the local business.
But I think the issue will be if you don't stop it, you're not going to be able to import it.
Yeah.
So find another source.
It has to come from above. The same with women in construction, with all these things.
We tried grassroots for so long. We thought that was the way to make change, but it's not.
Top.
Yeah, you've
top
got to
down.
be top down, and like we got 11% across the line there for on that exemplary project.
11%. Oh, it was almost like a bit of a joke, 11%, when we said it. Like, that's so low still. Why
it's
is it
asking-
25%?
Yeah, 11% is really nothing. We probably went with it because we thought even the toughest people that were against it would
Can't knock that back.
Can't knock
because
11%.
It could be just seen as maybe they could achieve it.
Yeah, no, it's got to come from top down, and it's almost like people are going to get bashed over the head, and some are going to get on board purely out of economic reasons, financial reasons. They've ignored it from a social trying to do the right thing perspective. But if their business is all of a sudden like back to that, as an essential part of their solar panels, well then there's I have to find another source.
That's right.
They could have always found another source.
Yeah.
Because they've always known.
They've always known, and like you just got to lead them all the way.
So sometimes
it's incredible.
It's only sometimes when they get hit, when people get hit over the head with
Enough
financial
times,
consequences.
Yeah, and I think people just don't even have the responsibility to understand the impact that they're having, or negative or positive, with a simple change. They're too busy with, whatever.
Day-to-day.
Yeah, day-to-day stuff, which is understandable in the climate, but they can have such a profound difference on something with a slight change.
Well, with all of the incredible work that you're doing with Eve Renovations and Eve Workwear to affect change so far, what is next mountain that you're going to try and climb, and do you have any specific goals that you want to meet in the short and long term?
Short term for me is I want to finally finish my house. It's been a long time coming, but so I'm going to do that over the next little while. But the workwear is certainly something we're focused on at the moment.
Yeah, we have distribution set up in Canada. The barriers in Australia, we had to look elsewhere basically for our market. So we're expanding that at the moment.
Awesome.
Based out of Toronto. So that's an exciting thing, and from that hopefully we'll trickle into the US and we'll see where that goes. But we'll just keep with the change, beating down doors in Australia, and hopefully
the next 4 months I think will be crucial for us and where we're heading.
Yeah, and we'll just see what happens.
That's amazing. Well, I think that you're champions of change, and
Thank you.
yeah, just a shining example of what there needs to be so much more of. And when everyone kind of talks about the platitudes and cliches of we need more women in construction, you're taking the kind of action that needs to be seen.
We want everyone else to take,
Maybe we have to step up and take those roles we're only 60% qualified for.
Oh yeah, we always say that guys. What do they say? Guys apply for jobs they're only 60%, and women won't apply unless they're 100% qualified.
So you never know where we'll pop up.
On our previous podcast episode, we've talked to Inika McMahon, and she does recruitment in construction.
Yes.
And she said that sometimes she has to lightly bully the women to apply for those jobs
Better
that
jobs.
they think, no, I'm not going to get. And almost 100% of the time they've
Get
gotten
the job.
it. So, yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
We might have to take those jobs to make change from the top.
Yeah.
Politics maybe.
Prime Minister Anita and Laura. Thank you for joining us on our podcast episode. It was such a good conversation, and I'm really excited to see how your businesses can continue to grow.
Thank you. Thanks
Thanks
for having us.
us.
Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the podcast today. The information we discussed today was just that, information only. It is not specific advice. If you take action following something you heard today, it is important to make sure you get professional advice about your unique situation before you proceed, whether that advice be legal, financial, accounting, medical or other advice. Please reach out to the Helix team if you have any questions or if there's another topic you'd like to explore. And if you know someone who might benefit from the show, remember to tell them about it or point them to our Instagram, Facebook or LinkedIn.